85% of people will experience a profound and devastating betrayal by someone they would have literally taken a bullet for. Are you sitting in the dark right now, wondering how the person you relentlessly protected ended up being the exact one who destroyed you? Did their sudden and brutal cruelty make you question if genuine loyalty even exists in this world anymore? You poured every single ounce of your precious energy and blind trust into their success only for them to leave you holding the shattered pieces of a massive mess you never created. Perhaps they completely destroyed your good reputation with toxic gossip just to selfishly elevate themselves. Perhaps they maliciously plotted in the shadows at your workplace to steal the exact position you worked so incredibly hard to earn. Or maybe they simply walked out the door and abandoned you when your entire life was violently falling apart. Right now, you are sitting in the incredibly painful aftermath of their selfish actions. You are anxiously waiting for the universe to finally deliver karma. You are desperately waiting for swift justice to balance the scales of your life. You are agonizing over why the toxic people who commit such malicious acts always seem to walk away without a single scratch. But what if I confidently told you that your current perspective is entirely missing the grander spiritual picture? What if the vicious trap they meticulously set for you was never actually meant to be the tragic end of your story? What if it is the exact divine mechanism God is actively using right now to catapult you into your greatest season of unprecedented blessing? Listen to my voice very closely right now. Hell absolutely never wastes its heavy energy on completely ordinary people. It deliberately targets the exact individuals whom God has specifically chosen for massive worldly impact. By the time this powerful video ends, you are going to deeply realize that what they specifically meant for your absolute destruction was actually a brilliant divine setup. Here are the 7 undeniable signs that God is about to completely turn what they maliciously did against you into your ultimate unstoppable advantage. Sign number 1 is that the attack against you was completely unprovoked. If you genuinely did something terrible wrong, then experiencing harsh correction is just the natural consequence of your own poor choices. But if you were suddenly attacked and lied about, or betrayed completely out of nowhere, you have just experienced a major spiritual marker. When bitter people attack you without any logical cause, they are not actually reacting to your normal human flaws. They are viscerally reacting to the heavy oil of divine anointing that currently rests on your life. They can clearly see the glorious and elevated destination you are headed toward, long before you even take your first physical step. Their sudden explosive outburst of jealousy or unexpected betrayal is the absolute proof that your mere presence was constantly highlighting their deepest insecurities. God intentionally allowed that unprovoked and painful attack to fully reveal the hidden darkness inside their true heart. He did this specifically so he could permanently remove their toxic presence before safely bringing you up to your next massive level of blessing. Sign number 2 is that you have suddenly entered the cold and quiet wilderness of total isolation. Almost overnight, your cell phone completely stopped ringing with messages. The warm and familiar invitations to social gatherings have completely dried up. The very people you firmly believed would boldly stand up and defend your honor have gone completely and terrifyingly silent. Your basic human instinct is to feel entirely abandoned and unfairly cast aside by the entire world. But your spiritual lens urgently needs a major shift right in this very moment. When God specifically anoints you for a massive calling, He almost always permanently separates you from the noisy crowd. God is absolutely not punishing you with this heavy loneliness. He is actively and purposefully quarantining you for your own spiritual protection. Isolation is simply the quiet classroom where God effectively teaches His most valuable and profound lessons. He deliberately clears the entire stage of your life because He is about to do something so magnificent that it requires your complete and undivided attention. He purposely removes all the dangerous counterfeit voices and fair-weather friends from your inner circle. He does this brilliantly so that when the massive blessing finally drops from heaven, you will know exactly who provided it without any confusion. Sign number 3 is that the trap they set actually exposed your greatest hidden capabilities. They viciously and intentionally tried to bury you deep in the dirt. They desperately tried to cut off your valuable resources and your strategic connections and your vital funding because they fully expected you to starve. But instead of starving in the dark, you aggressively started building an entirely new empire. You rapidly learned an entirely new and difficult skill set, simply because you absolutely had to survive the harsh winter. You uncovered a fierce and relentless inner resilience that you genuinely never even knew you possessed. You tapped into a profound and unshakable level of faith that a comfortable and easy life could never possibly teach you. They arrogantly thought they were the main source of your success, but they merely pushed you violently back into the loving arms of the true source. God masterfully used their painful betrayal to permanently unplug you from a very fragile and unreliable human system. He then beautifully plugged you directly into his infinite and unstoppable power supply. You do not necessarily need massive financial capital to start something great, because what you truly need is relentless capability. Their cruel and unexpected betrayal simply forced you to build the exact capabilities you desperately need to carefully handle your future immense wealth. Sign number 4 is that you currently possess an unexplainable and highly frustrating peace. This is the specific spiritual sign that absolutely terrifies your worst enemies more than anything else in the world. By all normal earthly metrics, you should definitely be suffering a massive and public mental breakdown right now. You should be acting incredibly loud and feeling fiercely bitter and aggressively trying to defend your damaged reputation everywhere you go. Instead, you are remarkably quiet and intensely focused on your own healing. You are certainly not ignoring the deep emotional pain, but the supernatural peace of God is heavily guarding your fragile, recovering heart. You are currently experiencing a profound and quiet confidence, deeply knowing that God is already handling the entire situation behind closed doors. This quiet and beautiful peace is not a sign of weakness, but rather an incredibly dangerous and powerful weapon. When you stubbornly refuse to step out of your righteous character, and when you utterly refuse to fight dirty, you immediately hand the entire battle over to God. Your total and absolute silence is quite literally the loudest alarm siren currently going off inside the dark camp of your enemies. Sign number 5 is that major new doors are mysteriously opening in exclusive rooms you never even bothered to knock on. When malicious and petty people actively try to ruin your good name in one specific room, God has a beautiful habit of boldly announcing your name in a much grander room that they do not even have access to. If you are suddenly noticing totally unexpected and massive favor coming from complete strangers, this is a huge indicator of divine change. If brilliant new opportunities and incredibly wise mentors, or abundant financial resources are suddenly gravitating toward you without effort, you are witnessing the divine reversal in real time. God is actively and clearly showing you that the small-minded people who cruelly rejected you never actually held the keys to your great destiny in the first place. He is entirely bypassing their petty earthly authority to permanently and powerfully establish yours on a much higher level. Sign number 6 is that you now view their hurtful actions as a highly valuable lesson, rather than a cruel and endless life sentence. In the very beginning of this painful journey, you were entirely consumed by a burning and fiery anger. You mentally rehearsed the painful and traumatic details of the betrayal every single night before desperately trying to fall asleep. But lately, something very deep and permanent has profoundly shifted inside your healing spirit. You absolutely no longer see yourself as a helpless and broken victim of their calculated cruelty. You now proudly and confidently see yourself as a victorious graduate of a very difficult and necessary spiritual masterclass. You clearly realize that if they had never broken your trusting heart, you would have tragically settled for a terribly mediocre relationship for the rest of your life. If they had never wrongfully and unfairly fired you from that comfortable job, you would have never found the fierce courage to start that highly successful business. You are finally starting to look at your betrayer not as a deadly weapon of your destruction, but as the exact necessary catalyst you desperately needed to reach your glorious resurrection. Sign number 7 is the complete and total death of your deep desire for any kind of petty revenge. This is absolutely the final and most profoundly powerful sign that your massive divine blessing is truly and completely imminent. You honestly no longer want to see those toxic people suffer for the terrible things they did to you. You no longer care one single bit about getting even or sitting back and joyfully watching them fail. You have completely and totally released them from your mind and from your precious emotional bank account. Why is this particular and difficult step so incredibly crucial to your future success? Because God will simply never hand a truly massive and life-changing blessing over to a deeply bitter and resentful heart. A bitter heart will inevitably weaponize the pure divine blessing just to arrogantly show off or to violently retaliate and crush other innocent people. When God clearly sees that you have permanently dropped the heavy stones you originally and desperately wanted to throw, He knows your hands are finally empty enough. Your hands must be completely and totally empty to fully receive the massive abundance He is about to generously pour out over your entire life. Listen to my words right now, and let them sink incredibly deep into your soul. The famous and ancient story of Joseph in the Bible was never meant to just be a nice historical narrative for you to casually read. It is actually a highly specific and strategic blueprint for your exact life right in this very precise moment. His own flesh and blood brothers violently threw him into a dark and terrifying pit and completely left him there to die. They heartlessly and cruelly sold him into brutal physical slavery for just a small handful of silver coins. They maliciously and repeatedly lied about his flawless character to incredibly powerful and dangerous people. But every single malicious and purely evil act they purposefully committed against him was just another necessary step on the escalator, taking Joseph straight up to the royal palace. What those cold people deliberately did to you was incredibly real and deeply painful. The heavy emotional pain that kept you awake crying at night was painfully and undeniably real. The dark and unexpected betrayal that completely shattered your trusting worldview was absolutely real. But you must always remember that God is the ultimate and flawless master architect of the entire universe. He is currently taking the exact heavy and rough bricks they viciously threw at you to knock you down, and He is actively using them. He is intentionally using those very same painful bricks to solidly build the absolutely unshakable foundation of your greatest upcoming blessing. You need to completely and immediately stop trying to desperately clear your good name with toxic people who are stubbornly committed to intentionally misunderstanding you. You need to immediately stop crying and mourning the painful loss of toxic people who were only ever assigned to a brief chapter in your history and not to your ultimate grand destiny. If you can truly and physically feel this massive spiritual shift actively happening inside your spirit today, I want you to make a bold physical declaration right now. Go straight down to the comments section below this video and boldly type the powerful phrase, "Lord, please turn it into my absolute greatest blessing." By physically typing those exact faith-filled words, you are loudly telling the unseen spiritual realm that you are officially no longer a broken and crying victim of your painful past. You are actively and boldly declaring that you are now the powerful and capable steward of your incredibly bright and prosperous future. You are decisively and permanently ending the toxic generational cycle of bitterness, and you are confidently stepping directly into the divine cycle of supernatural multiplication. If this powerful and anointed message successfully pulled you out of a very dark and lonely emotional place today, please share it immediately with someone else who is currently fighting a silent battle that nobody else knows about. And if you are finally and completely ready to stop just merely surviving and start truly thriving with deep and uncompromising biblical truths, you need to subscribe to our channel right now. We absolutely do not do shallow and meaningless surface-level motivation here on this specific platform. We are entirely and fiercely dedicated to building strong and incredibly resilient spiritual warriors who are fully ready for their highest divine calling. Let your jealous enemies continue to blindly plot in the dark shadows, because God is already preparing a massive and glorious feast for you at the winner table. I will see you in the next video.